Hey everybody, okay, so welcome to Saturday Mornings Outdoors. My name is Mr. Paul K, and this is part 2 of soil amendments, getting a vegetable garden ready for the garden. And it stopped raining. I had to stop because of the last show. It started pouring out, and it's 2 days later, and you can see that the lime that I applied is kind of sunk into the soil, which is a good thing. It don't matter on that, but I got the tiller all extrapolated and ready to go, and we're going to till. So without further ado, I'm going to mix the soil up and get some air up in that soil. Literally first pull. It's been sitting since last year. Impressive. Wow, I'm kind of out of breath. So this one I ran into a few hitches, but that is a completed. Now it's all mixed, all that chopped up vegetative matter, and the lime is totally mixed. And just look at how fluffy that is. Beautiful, friable soil. And so I'll show you what happened with the hitch. First off, I lost this cotter pin that locks the wheel so that you can either go in freewheel or in drive, and that's in a drive mode. But on the other side, somehow I lost it, so I kind of Mickey Moused it just with this bolt, and this is the second bolt. It kind of sheared. There's a lot of power here, and these are not rated for high pressure bolts, but it was a Mickey Mouse way of getting the job completed. Now I would get replacement cotter pins for this, if not something more stronger and elaborate. The problem is the way this cotter pin is designed. See this ring? This ring is supposed to pull up, and it's kind of spring-loaded, but it's a stupid design because it doesn't really spring up properly or lock down properly. And the other one, I believe, was bent. It's somewhere in the garden. I'm sure during the season I'm going to run into it and I'll find it, but it just wiggled its way out. And without that, there's no drive. Everything revolves, literally, no pun intended, around that cotter pin being in place. So if you have one of these, I'm sure you know. So the tilling is completed, and it's a really good job. It does a good job when it runs right. And you're looking at 4 hours work by hand, as opposed to with those snafus, it took me about maybe 20-25 minutes. And it's deep. Not as deep as shovels, but that's a good 6-8 inches deep, I believe. Alright, so the next setup that I usually do is this gadget, and this thing is, anyone with minimal woodworking skills can build this. Is nothing. It's basically a box, and this aids in hardening off my plants. So you can make them big, you can make it small, you can make it as whatever size you want. All these are tomato stakes, and they're just tacked together in a box form. And the plastic, I believe, this is probably 15-20 years old. They last a long time. It's just, you're only using them for a couple weeks till planting time. And the plastic comes from like Dollar Tree shower curtain lining, see-through lining. And when you make sure that there are feet on it so that you can stick in the ground, and make sure that you can pile dirt up along the edges like that, so there's no draft. So the plants don't get cold feet. No, at nighttime, you don't want the tender seedlings to get too cool. And this, someone was just throwing it out in the trash, and the point of this is that it's the adjustable top of the mini greenhouse. So at nighttime, basically that's it. And the bricks, one on each side. And that holds it in place. And you can adjust that, open, close, and the most simplest device. But that's the fun of gardening. It's you use your little skill, use your skills to, you know, improvise and whatever. You don't have to spend money on it. I mean, that probably cost $3 to build an old beater tomato steaks and a shower curtain. But by the way, that's stapled on, that's all. It's reinforced stapled. And the building of the actual frame of the box, that's tacked in with little finishing nails. And that's all. That's honestly, that's 15, 18 years old, that thing. They last forever, but they're very useful in hardening off plants. And it's fun. It's fun. It's the next stage. So there it is, all watered and tucked in, that one set of one flat. I like to water the ground around it, and so it doesn't get too warm in there, and water the inside of the ground too. And they'll do fine until, you know, I'll have more flats coming out here, filling that thing up and around it, and then we move on to the next step. All right, so we move on to the next step, which is we put the tomato steaks in. And I choose rebar. I've mentioned this on a couple other episodes, and the reason is because, you know, every year, if you're going to be a yearly gardener and you want to do tomatoes, the traditional, generally they use cedar or pine stakes. They're $3 a piece. If you can find clear ones, you have to get clear ones, of course, you know, ones with no knots. Otherwise they snap, and to be honest with you, they last maybe 2 seasons. They start rotting out. You can't use pressure treated wood because the arsenic will leach into the ground where the vegetables you're trying to grow. So for 20 years I used those, but you're talking $75 a pop for easily for 3 steaks that last 2, maybe 3 years. And I have a stack of them down my cellar, used ones that are no good for anything, but I don't know, they're just scrap lumber. Anyway, so I'm thinking all the possibilities. What could I possibly use? How about PVC? It's too bendy, and I don't want to use like the Schedule 40 heavy stuff. That's overkill, and it just personally would look like crap. So bamboo, too whippy. All the woods snap, all of them. They all snap and they rot in the ground. So I thought rebar, and then so it's a little pricey, and so 25. I think when I bought these 8 or 10 years ago, $275. So if you figure in the long run, $75 a year for wooden stakes, they only last 2 years. These are going to be indefinite. You know, when I first got them, I sprayed them with a rubber coating, but I don't even think you have to do that. And they don't rust. They're rebar. Well, they do kind of pick up a little rust, but they're going to last for 30, 40 years, and strong in hurricanes. Nothing's going to blow them down. They're easy to insert into the ground because they're rebar. They're stiff and they're slender, and I think they're, so far as what I can tell, whatever materials that we have to use, it's the perfect solution. They're windproof, like I say. Nothing's blowing these over. You can drive them in the ground 2 feet easily with a little baby sledge, you know, a 2-pound sledge and so forth. So I go with the rebar. If you're think you're going to be a lifelong gardener, I think it'd be a wise investment before spending 25 years at $75 every other year, and these will pay for themselves. A simple device that you can use in the garden that I use, and probably every other gardener that's been doing it for a while, is 2 sticks and a string to do straight rows. So I want to put out my tomato stakes in straight rows so it looks proper, it looks good, it looks sharp. And so it's 2 sticks and a string, and measuring, very simple country measuring. I use my hammer handle, and so, you know, whatever your technique you think you want to use, but 3 hammer handles in, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 from the sides, and that's where I start. And you ain't getting straighter than 2 strings. Carpenters use them. So I just tilled, so they go in pretty easy. They're just, nothing's blowing those over, and they're super strong, somewhat flexible, and that's it. We roll on. Do 4 more. And so there it is, all rebarred up. And by the way, those are 1/4-inch rebar, and they're 8 feet. So you figure 1.5 feet in the ground, you got 7, 6. I drive them about 2 feet, and I'm 6 foot tall, and it's about as tall as I am. So these really are just, you don't have to worry each year where you're going to get your tomato steaks and spend them. I mean, you know, you got to bite the bullet. It's $300, around there, $250, $300. But they'll cut them to length for you, and you know, they last forever. They're really worth it. And it's kind of a pain to me to figure it out, but I did, for me anyway. And that's pretty much the setup. Now we're ready for planting. There's not any more steps, I don't think, that I do that I'm ready for planting. I have my little doodads, I like seeing so you got temperature, weather gauge. You can buy these online for like $30 or something, but they're always cool. Nice little wind indicator on top. And then that one, it's homemade. It's a rain gauge on the top and a temperature gauge on the bottom at ground level, so I can see what the ground. Those aren't necessary, but they're very helpful if you really want to get into keeping records of your plants. And of course my hooties, my owl to scare away the rabbits. You're supposed to move them around, but I always forget. But anyway, there's one there and there's one there. They seem to work at the beginning, but I always end up plugging a few rabbits, and they end up the main course amidst the vegetables. So that's the setup for the 2025. Next step is the planting. My name is Paul K. If you want to see other gardening stuff, look under playlists, and you'll see a ton of stuff on every category that I do. And we'll see you next week, and we'll see what we can dig up. Have a good week now. Bye.